Good afternoon, Packers fans. Aaron Nagler here with your Packers Daily Chat, coming to you live on the Cheesehead TV social channels. Happy Wednesday. It is very much hump day in the sense that, man, it feels like this weekend is never going to get here. You know what I'm saying? I may be anxious because the new Motel Men drops on Friday and then we're playing on Saturday, but yeah, your mileage may vary. But Green Bay Packers are one day closer to rookies reporting on Friday for training camp. The 2025 season is right around the corner. We here at Cheesehead TV will be covering each and every moment of it. Thank you so much for making Cheesehead TV part of your daily Packers routine, even during the offseason, even when there is a dearth of news and information coming out. We're always talking Packers here, always happy to mix it up with you guys, Packers fans worldwide, because that's what we do. And today I wanted to highlight the tight end position in Green Bay, a position and a group that we've heard a lot about over the course of the last couple of years. The idea that they might be more involved, more a part of the offense rather than an afterthought when it comes to offensive output and production. And certainly Tucker Kraft pretty much arrived last year as far as his production goes. He was a yak monster, scoring touchdowns, putting up yards, and I don't think anybody would watch what he did last season and think that's a guy on the cusp of stardom. You know, I know he probably, in the eyes of the league and the general public, he's probably still somewhat of an unknown commodity, but man, I think he is ready to take a monster step into a really significant role in the Packers offense. Now, some of that will be somewhat dependent on Luke Musgrave staying healthy. We've talked about this a couple of times this offseason. Musgrave really needs to step to the fore in 2025. He has obviously been snake bitten with injury the last couple of years, but at least his rookie season, you saw a guy who was productive when he was out there. Certainly was putting up yardage and had plenty of opportunities in the passing game and delivered when called upon. And that really seemed to disappear starting last summer in camp, where he really was a non-factor for much of the summer. And then you got into the season, those first 4 games, I think he had 5 catches. I mean, he was just a complete non-factor. And then, of course, yes, he did suffer the ankle injury and missed the majority of the season. The excitement is there, though, for the two of them to be a tandem. And you heard Adam Stenovich talk about this earlier this offseason regarding 12 personnel, having 2 tight ends on the field, and a lot of the stuff you can do, especially in the play action game, with 2 tight ends. I do think Musgrave can continue to develop and become a real potent weapon in this offense. But I think for Kraft to reach his ceiling, he's going to need Musgrave to help out. And, that doesn't mean that, he couldn't do it in a more traditional one tight end set kind of way. But I think the Packers' designs in their offense and a lot of the stuff that they've drawn from going back to Shanahan stuff, but even the McVay stuff, if they could get into that kind of part of the playbook where the 2 tight ends are able to, not only just play in line, but also be split out, work out of the backfield and things of that nature, there are going to be opportunities for those guys. There's going to be opportunities in the boot game. There's going to be opportunities in the flats and in a wheel route situations. I just think if they can get both of those guys on the field for games, plural, get into a stretch where they're really causing problems matchup wise for defensive coordinators, you'll see teams start to play them differently. And that should in turn open up things on the perimeter for some of the receivers. But it's really going to be predicated on Musgrave being able to stay on the field, which clearly he has not been able to up until this point. Again, he's a bit snake bit. It's not really his fault, obviously, that he got hurt, but it would be nice to see the 2 of them, and for the 2 of them to be healthy, and for the team and offensive play caller and game planner to really feature them in a way that really hasn't happened so far, even when they have been healthy and working together. Clearly, Ben Sims is still in the fold, so to speak. Not a dynamic athlete, but a guy who can help you out. And you got to think, given what we've seen in the league over the course of X number of years, man, injury is going to strike, and you need to be able to have another tight end who can step in, at least just to keep the ability to throw kind of, different looks at a defense rather than, okay, well, that guy got hurt. We got to junk that part of the playbook completely because we don't have anyone who can run the stuff that we, want to run with these two tight ends. I think Sims is unfairly maligned as far as his ability in the passing game. I think if he got more opportunities, he would surprise some people. I think if anyone remembers, if you were there at camp last year, he had a number of days where he turned some heads with some work downfield in the passing game. But again, none of those opportunities materialized in season, which for Ben Sims, I can't say I'm surprised, but I do think he is a underrated kind of depth piece on this team because, again, if injury were to strike, I do think they can continue to utilize him and two tight ends if they actually lean into it and commit to it. And then John Fitzpatrick, he's returning, and he's a guy who clearly is going to be fighting for a roster spot along with Messiah Swinson and the newcomer and Johnny Lumpkin, who was picked up towards the end of last year. But Fitzpatrick, though, I know he really fits their athletic profile. Certainly, that's a guy that they probably had their eye on in the draft process. He has an opportunity this summer to turn some heads and maybe make a name for himself and possibly jump Ben Sims. I don't think that's an impossibility. I do think, obviously, Sims' role somewhat entrenched, his familiarity, the staff's familiarity with him will make that difficult. But I don't think Fitzpatrick is just a jag. I don't think he's just a guy out there. I think he's got some upside. And I think this summer is his best opportunity to kind of state his case. And that's one of the areas I'll definitely be watching for when I'm in Green Bay in a couple weeks. I can't believe that. That's crazy. A week from Sunday, I will be in Green Bay, and the Packers will have kicked off training camp. That's a little crazy. Hello, everybody in the comment section. So good to see you all. Hope you're all doing well. People piling in. Dennis is here, of course. Dennis, how are you, man? Of course, before we get going, got to give a shout out to our good friends over at Ticket King. Based in Wisconsin since 1992, Ticket King is located across the street from Lambeau Field on Oneida. They're happy to help you find just the right tickets for Packers games, from larger groups to single tickets, both home and away. They partner with local Green Bay businesses for tailgating and bus transportation to the games, so you don't have to worry about driving or parking. They're even open on game day for last-minute tickets or possible upgrades. And if you're not in Green Bay, no problem. Just use the Ticket King link on the Cheesehead TV homepage or indeed in the description of this video. Don't use Ticketmaster, StubHub, SeatGeek, none of these national companies. Use a company based in Wisconsin since the early 90s. Ticket King for all your Packers ticket needs. Do it, folks. The other thing you want to do is you want to get yourself the Green Bay Packers 2025 yearbook. The official yearbook of the Green Bay Packers. There's a link in the description of this video for you to find it. You can use code CHTV for 10% off. That's code CHTV for 10% off. And if you're listening on the podcast, I hear you. You're like, there's no link. I'm listening. There's no video. Well, calm down. Just go to packersyearbook.com. You'll find the playbook, the yearbook there for you to purchase. You use the same code, CHTV, and that'll get you 10% off. Do it, folks. It's excellent stuff. Great content from Mike Spofford and Wes Hodkowitz each and every year. Old school folks love themselves. The Packers yearbook, I got to tell you, and that's the other thing. Like, it's not just the writing, which is amazing, but there's tons of great photographs and stats and just tons of great content. Packers goodness spread throughout. Get yourself a copy. It's dope stuff. Evil Badger, how are you, man? Thanks for the super chat. And thanks for being a Care the G Club member. How far into training camp would you start stressing about the O-line depth chart? See, I like this. You can tell you've been a member for 35 months because my typical answer here would be, I only worry about my children. If you had asked how far into training camp would you start worrying about the offensive line depth chart, but you have used the word stressing, which is an interesting turn of phrase. Why would you stress, man? I get it. Yes, they got to be better up front. Certainly they need to be better than they were in that playoff game, right? But, man, I can't see a world where this group as collected isn't a step forward. I'm not saying a monster improvement because we'll see as they develop, but this is a significant step forward talent-wise, ability-wise, upside, across the board as far as filling the roles, whether at tackle, guard, or center. I think this is a more complete unit. And I really like not just the frontline starters, but some of the kind of immediate depth that's going to be on display. Now, obviously, I can't wait to get to camp. Can't wait to see these battles. But yeah, I think they're a step ahead of where they were coming into camp last year. How far into camp would I start, quote, stressing about it? Man, if you get to, say, that second preseason game or so, and it looks like there's a real problem, then you might start talking about it and thinking, okay, what else is available? Is there a trade possibility? Are there people on the waiver wire, etc.? But again, the Packers have done an amazing job throughout the years of growing their offensive line, as opposed to taking big swings in free agency, which they did do this offseason in a somewhat rare move. Really haven't made that kind of jump into the fray, so to speak, at O-line since Billy Turner back in 2019. And I know, they've had smaller signings since then, but a real kind of day one free agency signing. More often than not, they've liked to grow their own, and for the most part, I think they've done a really good job. And I think the addition of Banks, the hope of Elton Jenkins moving into center, and the competition at right guard and left tackle, that's going to be very exciting to watch. I'm not stressing about it in any regard right now. That's for sure. Talk to me again. We get into that, like I said, that second preseason game or so, But here's the other component that I got to remind you, and not just you, everybody of, and remind myself, really. We can get through camp, right? And these guys can look really good and really productive and et cetera, whatever. You get to week one, and all of a sudden things are totally different, right? I mean, that's live, as opposed to even in the preseason, you're not seeing a lot of the starters. The guys that do play, it's very simplified. You're running wide zone left, you're running A gap, belly dive stuff. It's like the playbook is hardly open. So things really change. And then on the defensive side of the ball, it's the same thing, right? Like they're running mostly basic stuff. Now, some teams have started blitzing a little bit more in the preseason, but even that, it's not like you're not dialing up exotics or anything like that. So for whatever they might look like in the preseason, even if they look great in the preseason, I'd still caution. You're getting too carried away or excited as opposed to stressing, right? Keep it on the even keel until we get to week one and we see what the reality looks like. Because, you can look either one of those. You can look great or terrible in preseason, even in training camp, and cannot really tell the tale. Because there are so many variables, so many different things in play as far as what combinations are being utilized, who knows what, as far as who's working on, we want to make sure we can run this wide zone. But the defense knows they're running wide zone, and they're going to, Matt's told Halfley, like, look, we're really working wide zone today. I really want you to make it as difficult for us as possible because I want to be able to work on this scheme and guys working their double teams and get to the next level, etc. Those are all conversations we're not privy to, but we see a guy get beat. We're like, oh, God, he's in trouble. Well, or maybe the defense has an advantage because of some reasons we're not available, that we don't know about. And obviously that's not, can't make an excuse. You're not saying like, oh, this, just don't have to worry about it at all. But just remember, there are a lot of factors at play during camp that we are not privy to. I just say that because I know camp's going to start next week and people are going to start tweeting from camp. And then all these huge narratives are going to form like in 48 hours or so. And it's always fun. It's always a good time. Michael, what's going on, man? Thanks for the super chat. Do you think there were any clear ways that Aaron Rodgers played differently in the playoffs than the regular season? Do you know that Rob Williams gif where he runs up on, so he's like kind of looking homeless or whatever, and he runs up and he goes, "What year is it?" That's how I felt reading that super chat. We're on the cusp of training camp in 2025, and you're asking about Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs with the Packers? Man, I appreciate the question, but wow, that's I guess it's the off season, right? Like, what else are we going to talk about at this point? Just waiting for camp. Clear ways that Aaron Rodgers played differently in the playoffs and the regular season. I mean, I'm sure people could make the case that he was a little tighter in the postseason. I do think sometimes people do forget, when they talk about, all the times, especially early in his career, when he led the team to a score that could have been the winning score, but the defense let him down. I mean, I know obviously a lot of people know that narrative, but, people throw up 2014 in Seattle all the time. And it's like, you do remember he was completely limited because he had a bum leg, right? Like his calf was completely shot and he had to play from a circle because he had to go out of the pistol all game, And look, it's not an excuse. You step on the white lines, you're going to be judged accordingly. I get it. But I do think there's context there when people talk about the frustrations with Rodgers' play in the postseason. Now, all of that said, I don't think it can be denied that there are certainly games throughout the latter part of his tenure in Green Bay where it just seemed like he was, I don't want to say afraid, but he was really reticent to pull the trigger at times because he was being so careful not to try and turn the football over. And which is, not a new criticism at all. Certainly zeroed in on Devontae Adams quite a bit, etc., things of that nature. But on a whole, I think there's more context to it than people just saying like XYZ is the reason that they didn't have more success in the postseason under Rodgers, including their kind of admonishment of Rodgers' play in the postseason. Certainly, he could have been better in some of those games, no doubt about it. There's certainly highlighted parts at the end of games where he has an opportunity underneath and he's pushing it deep, etc. Like that's been well chronicled. But I do think, like Matt always says, quarterbacks get way more blame than they should, way more praise than they should. I think the reality does lie somewhere in the middle. I would have liked to see Aaron elevate some of those teams a little bit more, given, his greatness, a guy who tore apart teams in the regular season and then seemed to, again, I don't want to say be afraid, but he seemed to shy away from ripping it in the postseason with the season on the line. And that's just off the top of my head sitting here thinking about it after a long time and not thinking about it. But there's way more context to it than, Aaron played XYZ, obviously. Jason, how are you, man? Thanks for the super chat. I think Kraft will be the best tight end we've had since Paul Kaufman. I don't think 80 catches is out of the question this year for him. I very much agree, and I think that is incredibly attainable. I think he could possibly become, and if he gets 80 catches, I think there's a good possibility he becomes the first Packers tight end to have 1,000 yards in a season. It's crazy to think that the Packers have never kind of had a tight end that hit that milestone, but I think Kraft could be that guy, especially in this day and age, wide open game, etc. Throw the ball around the yard. I do think he could become that guy. But yeah, I think the possibility is there. Obviously, he's got to do it, but yeah, there is no doubt the talent is on offer. Lawson Racing, thanks for being a Carry the G Club member. Appreciate you. New season around the corner and a new batch of Carry the G set to hit the shelves. The new look is awesome. If only there was a catchy song about it. That's a good point. I gotta change the. I gotta ask Brent to change the graphics for our jingle, because yes, Carry the G set to hit shelves later this week, early next week across the great state of Wisconsin. What is Carry the G, you ask? I'm glad you asked.
Well, we carry the G wherever we may be, so creamy and cold, and from the land of the green and gold.
That's right, Carry the G Cream Ale, the official beer of Cheesehead TV. Find it across the great state of Wisconsin on shelves. Like I said, later this week, early next week. Very, very excited to get to Wisconsin and get myself some Carry the G. What else we got? Oh, Nick, it looks like a new handle. Thanks for coming back and hitting up our YouTube Carry the G Club membership. Appreciate you, man. Klaus, how are you? Thanks for being a Carry the G Club member. Do you think other teams will pick Sims up if Green Bay drops him, or will he end up on the practice squad? Go Pack, go. Excellent question. I don't think he gets cut, but if he does get cut, could he possibly be claimed? Let me tell you something right now, Klaus. I am not going to do the thing that we all did last year. We're like, we always worry, and then no one gets claimed, because then, of course, the Packers went out and had more guys claimed last summer than any other team. So, yes, I do think the Packers have a squad that is full of young talent that at the end of the summer is going to be picked over. Would Ben Sims be one of those guys? I tend to doubt it, but man, like I said, after last year, never say never. I mean, someone got Darnell Savage, for God's sakes. Like, sure, possibly. Joe, what's up, man? Thanks for the super chat. I believe Paul Kaufman has the Packers tight end record for receiving yards in a season at 814. Can Kraft reach that? Is 1,000 out of the question? I was just talking about it, Joe. And you know why I was just talking about it? It's funny you bring that up about Paul Kaufman at 814. You know why I knew that? You know why that was just like top of mind? Like, hey, let me just pull this out of something. Feels like maybe thin air, but it wasn't thin air. You know why? Because I got that out of the Green Bay Packers 2025 yearbook. That's right. They have a whole feature on Tucker Kraft. I can't remember who wrote it, if it was Wes or I got to look here. Hold on. This is great content. I know. Yes, it was Wes. See, Wes wrote a piece on Tucker Kraft, and right there in the corner, most receiving yards by a Packers tight end in a single season. Yeah, and you are correct at 814, Paul Kaufman in the year of our Lord, 1983. So, yeah, could he do 1,000? Yes. 100% yes, he could. Now, will he? We'll see. Peter, thanks for the super chat, man. Any word on the Jordan Love documentary that Omaha Productions was working on? Nothing that I have heard of. I know Manning had talked about not just the Jordan Love thing, but also their partnership with the Packers on doing a Packers fan / franchise history doc, as far, the history of the team and the franchise and the fandom and the city, etc. I believe that's being produced for Netflix, and that should be out, I guess, in the next year or two. But as far as the Jordan Love specific, I haven't heard a peep about it since that kind of week when Manning showed up and they had the picture with Jordan Love there at Lambeau. It's funny. I think Corey and LiveX are working with Omaha Productions again. So I'll ask Corey to see if he can get a little inside scoop for you guys. Declan Williams, thanks for the super chat. Hey, Nags, looking to get tickets for the preseason game versus the Jets, besides, of course, using Ticket King. Do you have any tips or a preferred section? No preferred section. Any seat is a great seat in an NFL stadium, and especially at Lambeau Field. But as far as, tips, yeah, use Ticket King. It's your best bet. And I don't doubt for a moment that if you arrive early, you will get the full game day experience, even if it is just a preseason game. You will have a ball. Trust me on that one. What's up, Nick? Nick here. Good to see you, bud. Are people sleeping on McCole Hardman's presence? Maybe a bit. I think there's some I need to see it kind of thing going on there, which I totally understand. We talked about this on a happy hour last week. I do think you look at his, contribution, so to speak, his production in the OTAs and minicamp, and it does kind of raise your eyebrow a little bit, like, hey, they're actually using him from scrimmage with the ones, and he's kind of starting to look like he might fit in. Now that can all change once pads come on, who knows? But I do think there's an ability there as far as a guy who's played a lot of football in the league. He's your oldest vet at this point. And you can't deny his return ability. He is a better punt returner than anybody on the Packers roster, and probably the best punt returner that's been in a Green Bay uniform since Micah Hyde left, right? So, yeah, I think there's a very good chance that he is maybe not a significant contributor to a, hopefully a deep run, a championship run, whatever. But, man, he has the ability to affect a game. And maybe that, to your point, is being slept on a little bit. No doubt. E4, what's up, man? 85 Bears lost every preseason game, but that's because they suck. And then the Lions won every preseason game before losing all 16. It's amazing. The preseason is a hell of a drug. Will Collins, thanks for the super chat, man. Are you guys going to do any meetups during camp? I got this question last week. As of right now, sitting here the day of our year of our Lord 2025, July 16th, the answer would be no. But things can change. We will see. There are a lot of balls in the air at Cheesehead TV headquarters at the moment. A lot of things in the works, so to speak, for throughout this season. But as of right now, no, not looking to do a meetup during camp. But like I said, that will most likely change. Keep it here. Keep coming to Packers Daily, and I will certainly let you guys know about it. I will remind everyone, in the New York area, we will be having a meetup at Kettle of Fish Thursday, August 21st at the Kettle. It's going to be a lot of fun. Patrick will be back from his sojourn into lake life, which is, God, he's got some stuff on his social. I was so jealous. It looked like so relaxing. But we will have a meetup here in New York at Kettle of Fish in late August. But yes, as far as training camp goes, as of right now, no, but things can change, and they probably will. Wish I had more concrete info for you, but like I said, keep it here, and we'll let you know. All right, everybody, thank you so much for hanging out each and every day, Monday through Friday, right here on the Cheesehead TV social channels. Please do me a monster favor and hit like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and then tell your friends and tell your family. Cheesehead TV, we are devoted to Green Bay Packers fans worldwide. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great day. Go Pack Go.